This week on the show, Tyler Sullivan joins us to talk about the nonsense going on in Foxborough. The Bruins and Celtics continue their playoff runs, and the Red Sox are the best team in baseball. How'd that happen? We'll discuss all that and more. Calling It starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Calling It podcast. Alex Barth and Alex Lebowitz with you in mid-April. And when we talk about the Patriots in mid-April, and we're going to start with the Patriots today, normally, Lebowitz, we're enjoying it. It's draft stuff. We get to dig into 40 times and the bench press and college tape. Not so much this year.
Yeah, definitely not. A lot of drama. Not something that Patriots fans are really used to. And it also seems like the conclusion of my childhood is coming up. So, yeah, it's been a interesting off season, really an interesting past few months since that Seth Wickersham article.
More on the end of your childhood in a second, but I want to welcome in Tyler Sullivan from 24/7 Sports, covers the New England Patriots over there. Tyler, thanks for joining the show.
No problem. What's going on, guys?
It's just another day in the paradise that is Patriots Nation. And I was thinking about this driving home today, and if I'm totally off the reservation with this, please, guys, call me out on it. And if you're listening, you want to call me out on Twitter, @RealAlexBarth. Does anybody else miss the Deflategate offseason 2 summers ago when it was Brady versus the NFL? Is anybody else longing for those days, or is that just me?
No, it's so true. I mean, that was the common enemy, right? There was everybody against the world. You know, we were in the castle, we were in the palace, we were looking over, and we were fighting everybody else. Now, I don't know. It seems like all the siblings are fighting each other at this point. It seems, I would love a common enemy at this point, not bickering with each other.
Yeah, it's really, it's all in house right now. You have, it seems like Kraft originally was taking Brady's side in the middle of the season and forced Belichick's hand to trade Garoppolo. And now it seems like the tables may have turned. It seems like Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick might be going against Tom Brady for what he's doing now. Now, I think he's going to be back next year. Obviously, the report coming out today, Adam Schefter saying that Brady hasn't confirmed that he is coming back next season. He's coming back, right? You guys agree, right?
Oh, yeah. I do believe he's coming back. And I do. There is probably a little bit of there's probably a little bit of a nudging publicly for Brady for Brady against Belichick. There could be that sort of dynamic there because really Brady hasn't had a lot of control over these last few years. I think that's one thing that really hasn't been talked about is here's a guy who is the greatest at his position. He's won more than anybody else, but he's really lost or not really had a lot of control in terms of his personnel and the guys he's played with. That's been all Belichick. And we all know this. I mean, we've been following this team like we've been saying forever. And so it's always Belichick is going to be perfectly fine with letting Tom Brady's favorite guys go away. We saw Danny Amendola go away this offseason. You talk about Logan Mankins going back. I mean, you can pick a bunch of these guys, Wes Welker even. You can go down that list. And Brady's never really had the control to keep those guys. Sure, he obviously takes less money, and he does that every now and again, but oftentimes that doesn't really result in guys staying in New England. There are situations where Belichick just lets them go and Brady takes less money, and it goes on from there. And so I think this year was a tipping point. The dude's playing at 40 years old. He's the best in the league. He's on path to win the MVP at this time. And then all of a sudden, Belichick out of nowhere is like, you know what? I don't want this trainer, Alex Guerrero, near me anymore. I want him out of here. So I think that this is one of those things where Brady just feels completely helpless and no control. And I think this is one area, social media and his voice and all of that and who he can talk to with certain reports. I think he can kind of nudge them this way and put some heat on him on this side. Belichick, who's already had a ton of heat this offseason because of the Butler situation.
I feel like Brady, as image conscious as he is, knows what it would look like if he stepped away after everything that went down with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I feel comfortable that he's going to come back for at least one more year. The playing till he's 45 stuff, I think, is out the window now. I think it's very clear that the end is clearly sooner rather than later. I'd say anything after this year is up in the air. But Rob Gronkowski is the one who scares me because this is a guy that, has had doctors telling him that he shouldn't be playing pretty much since college. And it's gotten really scary the last couple of years with his back. We know what he went through 2 years ago. Tyler, with Brady, it's maybe a cry for more money or a cry for more control. With Rob Gronkowski, don't we have to take it a little more seriously that he may actually be done?
I would say so, but it doesn't feel like it's a health concern. With Brady, and I'm just going back to it quickly with Brady, I just think that it's more, he really can't have one more year. With this Garoppolo thing, we can talk about that in a second, but with the Garoppolo thing, he's got to be locked in for 2 more years, at least in my opinion. It can't just be 1 more year. But with Gronkowski, I would almost say that it feels more like money. I mean, he has all these cryptic tweets about bands making her dance and all that stuff. Like, it just feels like he wants more money. That's, we saw that last offseason when all of a sudden he got the restructure for 2017. He had the ability to be the highest paid tight end in the NFL with like $5.5 million in incentives. He ended up breaching that, made a ton of money, good for him, but he had to scratch and claw his way to go get that money. And I think that he maybe wants that opportunity again, or wants something maybe a little bit easier for him to make that money, especially when you're looking at the Trey Burtons of the world signed with the Chicago Bears for a ton of money. You have Jimmy Graham still making over $10 million or just around that money for next year with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, you look around the league, and Gronkowski's not dumb as much as we like to pretend like he is, but he's looking around the league saying, listen, these guys, I'm better than, and I should be making more money. And I think that that's probably what it is there. But that's what I think. I think that it's more money focused. So I can get on Rob Gronkowski for saying, all right, come on, dude, let's go. If it's really a health concern, I don't really have a huge problem with it. I just don't feel that way. Because, again, if all of a sudden you're telling me that he's really 1 hit in the back away from possibly a 4th back surgery in his life, I mean, that's some scary stuff there. So, obviously, you want to take that with a grain of salt, but I don't think he's thinking that way. I think he's thinking he wants more money.
And it's one thing if it's just Gronk, who's the guy who's speaking out, subtweeting Bill Belichick, but you have Brady coming out and doing what he's doing, which is really unprecedented. You have Danny Amendola really going off the cuff about Belichick, at least for Pat standards or former Patriot standards. How would this situation be different if Belichick had played Butler and even if they had won that Super Bowl? That seems like it was really the boiling point for all this stuff to kind of come out.
Not only is a Super Bowl ring good to wear at parties, but it's also a great Band-Aid for a lot of things. That's basically what it would be. It would be one of those situations where, all right, yeah, you know what? It was grind. It was a pain in the butt all season, but, I looked down at my finger, and that's why. That's the result. That's the reason why we did it. I mean, you even talk about it when, Martellus Bennett said it a couple of times through interviews that it was a grind to go through some of the practices with the Patriots, but, back in Super Bowl 51, it proved to be worth it. All those conditionings, running up the hill and stuff that they didn't want to do. And they were perfectly conditioned to come back on a 25-point, just remarkable comeback. And that's due in part to what they were able to do with Bill Belichick. So I do think that if all of a sudden Malcolm Butler plays, yeah, maybe those issues that they had during the season with Guerrero kind of goes by the wayside. Players feel a little bit more accomplished. There's a reason why they're there. If all of a sudden you're looking at Malcolm Butler and he's sitting on the sidelines and you haven't heard a peep, because it feels like players haven't heard like a legitimate reason. Like, there was obviously following the Super Bowl, there was a lot of talk of, was he out late? There was a report that he was maybe at a Rick Ross concert that he kind of shut down in his own statement. And I feel like players would know that obviously being in-house, we're not privy to everything that the Patriots do. They are. They know what's going on because they are New England Patriots. And so for all these players to come out and be so frustrated about Butler's benching, clearly there's not enough word going around, or there really isn't anything that would suggest to them it's like, oh, he didn't do anything egregious to say, all right, yeah, I kind of understand why he was benched. So I think that's where they start to lose him. So yeah, Brady still might have his issues, but I don't think Amendola would. I think Amendola would say the proof is in the pudding. They keep winning. Nate Solder, same thing. Yeah, it's tough, but they win. That's where I think it kind of goes down the ripple effect. Yeah, Gronk might still be looking for more money, and Brady still might be pissed about Guerrero, but I think if you win a championship, those other guys don't have that trickle-down effect.
So we'll wrap it up on this note. We're talking to Tyler Sullivan. He covers the Patriots for 24/7 Sports. Obviously, draft plans evolve. It's a year-long process. Teams look at guys, and they shift their needs accordingly. But given everything that's happened, how much do you think the Patriots have shifted? How much should they shift their draft plan based on what's happened in the last couple of weeks with Brady and Gronkowski?
Well, this is what I think is really interesting. I kind of stumbled on this idea today, just kind of, because Doug Codd of Nesson had a great report that the Patriots are interested to some degree with UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen, which I found interesting. Obviously, the New York Daily News earlier this offseason had a little bit of a nugget that they had an affinity towards Baker Mayfield. And then there's a few reports about Kyle Lauletta out of Richmond, the kind of second-tier guys, Mason Rudolph, who might go end of the first, early second. And to me, I find it interesting because I think if you take this Brady stuff into account today, and obviously that he's not committed or hasn't committed to the 2018 season, I think one thing you have to look at, if we don't hear anything by next week in the NFL draft in the first round, is if you're looking at the Patriots and you see them go up and make the blockbuster move for Josh Rosen, say he falls down to 9, you swing a deal with the San Francisco 49ers, or he goes down to 10, you swing it with the Raiders, and all of a sudden the Patriots make this big splash and they go after the guy. That to me would suggest that they are legitimately nervous that Brady's going to walk away maybe as early as this year or maybe right after the 2018 season, because the only reason the Patriots right now should be able to, or should go up to get a guy so high in this draft, is because he's closer to being day one ready than the other guys. With Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a second-round pick, but even he needed some time to get ready, just like Kyle Lauletta does, just like Mason Rudolph, I believe, does, just like Lamar Jackson, I believe, does. Outside of the, whatever it is, the big four, those guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, maybe, Josh Allen, and obviously Josh Rosen, those guys may be more day one ready. They go and get a day one guy. What does that say about Tom Brady? If they want the project, like Luke Falk or any of those guys, well, then all of a sudden you feel a little bit better because they know better than anybody else what Tom Brady's going through. And if they feel he's closer, really close to the end, well, then they're going to get a more ready-made guy for the foreseeable future here.
This is going to be my last question. I just want to ask you, given everything that's happened really since the middle of the season, since the Garoppolo trade, this whole ordeal, whose legacy will this affect the most? And I really think it's between Kraft and Belichick. Kraft for forcing Belichick's hand and getting rid of the guy who was really in line to be Brady's successor and who looks like he has a decent future in the NFL. Belichick for essentially losing the locker room, or losing the locker room as much as he really can, or Brady for kind of going back on his word. At least that's what it appears to be. Or do you think this will all blow over and we're going to look back and think we all overreacted to this whole situation?
Well, I mean, it could go either way. Right now, we're at the pivotal moment in the ESPN 30 for 30. We don't know how it's exactly going to end, but it's going to be awesome. We know that, but we just don't know exactly which way it's going to go. But I do think that Robert Kraft, it may, I don't know. You can talk about obviously earlier in the days when he helped the Patriots, not leave New England and not go to Hartford and all that stuff. But right now could arguably be the most pivotal moment, in his ownership during this dynasty for the Patriots, because it really does determine the ending. He doesn't want the same ending that he had with Bill Parcells, where it was just this complete, just bleep show of an ending, and especially to the level of success that Brady and Belichick have had. Right now, he needs to really play peacemaker at this point. And if he can somehow finagle this, and he's done this before, he's done this with NFL strikes, he's really been able to kind of get two sides and put them together. This is his probably most pivotal moment in his ownership thus far for the Patriots, to see if he can get Brady and Belichick on the same page for, say, the next 2 years. And let's say they walk away together. You think maybe 2020. Both those guys get out of here. The next guy is ready along with Josh McDaniels, and you move forward. So that's where I think, obviously things stand right now. You're at that pivotal moment. If things do go south, I do blame Robert Kraft a little bit for not being able to handle it. That's what an owner does. That's what he should be able to do. But if all of a sudden this thing goes south, I do think Brady's to blame a little bit, because think about it. Who's changed? Who's changed here really since 2001? Bill Belichick's been the same dude. He's the same guy that got Cleveland fired. I mean, he's been this guy throughout his entire career. Now, you could argue that he needs to change with the times and all of that. You could absolutely do so, but he's also won, and so is Brady. But Brady, and this is where I think Brady and Gronk are this is where I think kind of POs Bill Belichick a little bit with Brady and Gronk, is that over the past, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, maybe 5 years, maybe you can even say 3 years, they've become brands, mega brands. Even Brady early in his career wasn't a brand. He was just a very good quarterback. He was like, Ben Roethlisberger doesn't have a brand, but he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback in the NFL. He's not he's a good quarterback, but not that household name. Once he started to go on the undefeated seasons, once he started to win at an old age and come back in just these epic moments against the Falcons and obviously against the Seahawks, even though Butler had that interception, he was great in that game too. You just have this allure around him, and all of a sudden you have the TB12 method. Rob Gronkowski's doing his thing with the parties and the cruises and all that. They just become the brands. It's It's TB12. It's Gronk. It's those guys. I mean, they're putting out books. They're doing out all this stuff. And I think Belichick kind of sees that as, above the team, better than the team. And so I think that's kind of where it gets out of hand with Belichick. But going back to what you said, who's going to be blamed, I do think you got to put it on Brady a little bit, especially if he walks away. Like if this is legit and he walks away and he's like, you know what, guys, woke up this morning, not feeling it. That 45 thing I've been saying for like 5 years, nah, I'm out. It's gone. Well, wait a minute. No, you can't do that. We just traded the guy who was at one point the highest paid quarterback in the NFL this offseason because he was fantastic for us when we had him when you were suspended for Deflategate, and for the 49ers. He looks like the real deal. We had the plan in progress. Why you cannot have this change of heart right now? So to me, it would be Brady if things went south right now.
And it's interesting. You brought up a couple interesting points there, and just something I want to touch on before we wrap it up here. Again, we're talking with Tyler Sullivan from 24/7 Sports. You mentioned kind of Brady transitioning from NFL player to brand. And remember, after the knee injury, Brady went through this kind of weird celebrity phase, right? The man bun in Brazil, doing the acting gigs and all that. And that was when he used to not go to the optional off-season workouts. Then the Patriots drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, and we kind of shifted into that phase of Brady's career that's the workout freak, the health freak, just team before everything. So I wonder if maybe he's reverting back to that celebrity status now that Garoppolo's gone, and perhaps drafting another quarterback will snap him back into it. The other thing, and I want to leave the Patriots segment on this, and I want you guys to weigh in real quick because we're well over, but this is a great discussion. And I brought this up after the Wickersham piece, and I kind of forgot about it, and I remembered it today. Patriots fans specifically, I'm 24, Lebowitz is 23, Tyler,
25.
You're 20s, right? 25. There you go. So, we came up with Tom Brady, with the dynasty.
Yeah.
And I'm specifically talking to the 20-something-year-old Patriot fans out there. Are you a Patriots fan or are you a Tom Brady fan? Because we're all going to be forced to ask ourselves that question in the next year or two. And I think some of you, if you really think about it, aren't going to like the answer. I know it. I am a Tom Brady fan. Once Brady leaves, I'll still root for the Patriots, but it will never be the same. And if Brady went elsewhere and the Patriots played him in a Super Bowl, I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about that. So, yes, you can't see it on the record. I got Patriots gear all around me here. Will always root for the New England Patriots. But if I had to pick one, if I'm rooting for one, I am a Tom Brady fan above all else. And that's maybe why this is so tough, because, Tyler, like you just said, this may actually be his fault.
Yeah, no, I do think that it's kind of weird. And I think a similar thing happened to, the Red Sox for a little bit. It's not to this degree, but David Ortiz leaves. I think a lot of fans had to kind of really look themselves in the mirror and say, okay, why am I rooting for this team again? Well, I think you saw a drop off. Like the last few years, the team wasn't that likable. I found myself saying, I don't like these guys. Okay, they win the division, but I don't really like them. And David Ortiz was that likable, polarizing figure. And, Tom Brady, I mean, this thing's, that on steroids. I mean, it's absolutely insane. So, no, I do think that you're going to have to – a lot of fans are going to be faced with this, especially now that you don't have this – right now, at least, you don't have this seamless transition into a new era, new quarterback, maybe Josh McDaniels as the head coach or Belichick for a year, however you want to do it, with Jimmy Garoppolo. There might be a couple of years or so. If they don't nail this, it's not a slam dunk that if they draft Josh Rosen or Mason Rudolph or any of these guys, that they're going to be any good. It's going to be a coin flip. And so if he sucks, the Patriots might suck for a couple of years. You're looking at some 4-12 seasons. That's going to have to be a tough sell for a lot of these fans. Absolutely.
Especially if for whatever reason Tom Brady goes elsewhere and the Patriots are 4-12. Well, Tom Brady's 12-4. Oh
yeah, you'll have, it's like a Peyton Manning Denver Broncos situation.
Right.
You'll have a lot of Patriots fans become Rams fans.
And whatever team he goes. I don't. It's interesting you bring up Peyton. I don't doubt that there was a sizable amount of Broncos fans in Indianapolis for those 2 years.
Oh, no doubt.
For sure. I just want to – the question you're asking, because I don't think it's necessarily are you a Brady fan or a Patriots fan. I think it's turned into are you Team Brady or Team Belichick? Because Belichick is really the representative for the Patriots. If Brady were to go elsewhere and play for a different team against the Patriots, it wouldn't be Tom Brady versus the Patriots. It'd be Tom Brady versus Bill Belichick at this point, right?
True. Yeah, that's a great point. It really
especially after the way the Super Bowl went down.
Yeah, it's turning into a rivalry. It's an in-house rivalry, which is something I never thought we'd see, but that's what it's turned into, and that's the real question. Who do you root for, Brady or Belichick? I think 90% to 95% of Patriots fans will probably say Tom Brady.
Look, I think it just depends on the ending, though. Like, if he does walk away, or if he does say, you know what, I'm done, or there's some other way, and then he just comes back like Brett Favre did with the Vikings, you'd say, okay, I'm going to side with Bill Belichick here. Yeah, he screwed up in the Super Bowl, but at least he's here. He's loyal. I think you would have that kind of rah-rah situation. Mm-hmm. But if all of a sudden it's a little bit more amicable, then yeah, I think you have a lot of people going towards Brady.
All right, so let us know what you guys think at Calling It Podcast on Twitter. Are you Team Brady, Team Belichick? Are you with Brady or are you with the Patriots? Thanks to Tyler Sullivan for joining us. You can check him out at 247sports.com. Follow him on Twitter at Tyler Sully. Tyler, thanks, and good luck with all your draft coverage next week.
No problem, guys. Thanks.
We'll be back on the other side. All the joy at the Boston Garden that the Patriots are making us ignore, we'll touch on that right after this.
Calling It is brought to you by American Broadcast Coaches, training the next generation of media talent and communicators. For more information, check out AmericanBroadcastCoaches.com.
Welcome back. Alex Barth and Alex Lebowitz with you on a Wednesday. Thanks to Tyler for joining us. Lebowitz, we got to make this quick now because that was a good conversation. That went 20 minutes.
Oh, that was great. We needed it. That was a therapy session.
You know what? It was a good therapy session. It was a good release. But let's talk about something else that we're going to enjoy right now, and that is the playoffs over at the Boston Garden. The Celtics and Bruins each going through. Convenient we're recording the show on Wednesday. This is the last day, I think. I mean, pending the series ending early, but if both series go to Game 7, this is the last day for like a week and a half without a playoff game. So a good time to reset, touch base. Bruins lost their most recent game in Tampa, but they still lead that series 2-1. Celtics are a game back on the Bruins in terms of games played. They have a 2-0 lead as it heads to Milwaukee. So the Bruins have the one loss, but their 2 wins are blowouts. Celtics have played a couple closer games, but we all know the story with them and the injuries, and people weren't expecting much. I picked the Bucks in 6. Who are you more impressed with? Whose playoff start are you more impressed with or are you more surprised with?
It's a tough question. I'm very impressed with the Celtics just because of the young guys stepping up. Jaylen Brown doing what he did in Game 2 was remarkable. Al Horford showing up in Game 1. They've had a lot of guys who have just showed up and played very well. And you could also look at the Bucks, kind of pathetic, not super pathetic, but kind of pathetic against
Giannis and then everybody else.
Exactly. So the competition isn't great, but this is a Celtics team without Kyrie, and I'm not even going to bring up Gordon Hayward, but they don't have a ton of talent on that team. They have a lot of young guys who are promising, but not really people you expect to carry a team through the playoffs, and that's what they're doing at least through the first round. With the Bruins, I'm impressed that they didn't carry over that last week of the season into the playoffs, and they bounced back in Game 1 and 2. They're playing really well. They're playing like they were mid-season. And Tuca, although he hasn't been amazing, he's been good enough. He still needs to step up a little bit. The Game 3, obviously, you go to Toronto. That's a tough game.
Careful there. Jimmy Murphy's going to show up at your house.
I know. He's already there. No, but it's tough to go into Toronto with a team that has their back against the wall, essentially, and win that game. I still think they're going to come out on top in that series relatively easily. I would give the slight edge to the Celtics just because they're playing better than I thought they would. I thought the series would be closer. I assumed that the Bucks would get at least one in Boston through those first 2, and they didn't. So I'll give the edge to the Celtics there.
So I'm gonna go with the Bruins just because the way the games have turned out. If you told me the Celtics were going to win the first 2 games, I'd be a little surprised. But they're both close-ish games. I know last night was somewhat of a blowout, but they've both been nothing surprising about the 2 games. Obviously, the way Game 1 ended regulation was surprising with a shot with half a second to go. But yeah, they went to overtime once and the Celtics blew them out once. That's about right. The Bruins have just been on it. I know they lost 1 game, but it still feels like the aggregate score is unworldly. What is it, 7-4? And they put up 7 once. I don't have the exact scores in front of me, and especially the way they finished the regular season, I think you could tell that they were sort of just trying to save it for the playoffs, and that's fine. But they turned it around like that, and just utter dominance. Tuukka had a great 2 first games, a little shaky game 3 in Toronto, but like you mentioned, Lebowitz, that's a tough game. That's a tough game in a tough environment. And now they have two games off. I think if they can get game 4, that should wrap up the series. And no doubt they'll go up 3-1. But once you win on the road, then it's really a series. So I just think the Bruins have looked like an absolute wagon. Here's why I'm more impressed with the Bruins. The Celtics have looked like a good team, but they don't look like an NBA champion. The Bruins look like a Stanley Cup team in the first round right now, outside of Vegas, and that was some upset. Not necessarily they beat Los Angeles, but in the way they did. Outside of Vegas, I don't know that there's a team that's looked better in the playoffs thus far than the Bruins, even with the 1 loss.
Yeah, they're looking pretty well-rounded right now, and obviously there are question marks with that defensive group. But they've stepped it up, and you look at a guy in Zdeno Chara, and that goal he had in Game 3.
I didn't know he could do that.
That was amazing. I was shocked.
He could do that. And hang on, while we're talking about highlight goals, David Pastrnak, Game 2, pure.
Oh, my God. That was amazing. 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists. Unbelievable performance out of him.
He's very good.
Again, you can go back to the Maple Leafs kind of crapping the bed. They played like the Bucks played against the Celtics in that game too. So it was a soft opponent that day, and they did respond. But I think the Bruins have played very well, and they've looked exceptional. And I have just as much confidence that they are Stanley Cup contenders as I did before the playoffs started. I think we knew what this team was capable of once they were in the midst of that run. And they've really found something. It's been impressive to see. But again, Game 4 is huge because that's a big swing. Whoever wins that game, you could argue, wins the series. And that might be a little over dramatic, but it's
I 100% agree with you. I was over dramatic about it before.
Yeah, it's the truth though. Yeah, because although they would have one more home game to work with, the momentum would be nuts. So it's a big game. They played well. I think they'll bounce back, and it's been a team that's been pretty resilient all season long with the injuries that they've faced. So I expect them to win Game 4 and handle this series with relative ease.
So let me ask you this then. We are on a short week. Our next show will be on Monday, so that is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some quick math in my head. 5 days away. Mm-hmm. Are either of these series over by the time we do our show on Monday? Will we be talking round 2 on Monday for either team?
So there's 2 games left for both series, or 2 games between now and then for both series.
So the Bruins have Thursday and Saturday. So Bruins have 2 more, so they would have to win out. And the Celtics have Friday, and so they each have 2 more. So they basically will either Boston team lose again before we do the next show.
Yeah, I think the Bruins will advance to the next round. I think they respond in Game 4, and then win Game 5. Obviously, I think the Celtics will lose 1 in Milwaukee, whether it's Game 3 or Game 4. I don't know. I mean, if they win Game 3, odds are they win Game 4. But I think there's more of a likelihood that we see the Bruins advance to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs than we do the Celtics advance to the Eastern Conference semifinals between now and Monday.
One team that it really looks like won't lose between now and the next show, and the team that is the only team in the regular season, and they're off to a record start, and is getting buried by all this nonsense between the playoffs and the Patriots. Well, you know who I'm talking about, but we'll discuss that on the other side. This is Calling It, powered by CLNS.
Calling It is brought to you by American Broadcast Coaches, training the next generation of media talent and communicators. For more information, check out AmericanBroadcastCoaches.com.
And welcome back to Calling It. Alex Barth, Alex Lebowitz, as always. Not as always, because we are coming to you a couple days later than usual. Both had marathon obligations on Monday, so here we are. And so in some ways here, Lebowitz, here's how I want to start this segment. In a lot of ways, we have to eat some crow because of what the Red Sox are doing. But let's start on this note. Do you remember, and if you listening want to double check this, it's on our Twitter handle, @CallinItPodcast. Do you remember when we made our preseason MLB picks?
I do, vividly, yeah.
Do you remember who our pick for Rookie of the Year was? We both had the same pick.
Yeah, it was not Shohei Ohtani.
That's right. So, he throws a couple of games against the Athletics, The lowly Athletics. Everybody gets all excited. But he finally faces a good team, and look what happens. So that, I think it's safe to say, is a check mark in our column for now.
Yeah, I mean, I still want to wait and see what he'll be like. I think he's a good baseball player. He excelled in the games that he has played in up until yesterday. I just think the struggle with a guy like that is what are you going to focus on, pitching or hitting? It's a full-time job to do both. So I just think as an athlete, one's going to suffer, and eventually he's going to have to choose one. After yesterday, you're probably thinking he's leaning towards being a full-time hitter.
We'll save the Ohtani talk for the people in LA, though. Let's focus on the Red Sox. They do have the best record in baseball. Their pitching rotation apparently is amazing, which I bitched about it all winter, so egg on my face. They're hitting the crap out of the ball even without Xander Bogaerts. I think the shortstops who have filled in between Zue Lin, Brock Holt, and I believe Eduardo Nunez played a game at short. The guys who have filled in for Bogaerts since he went on the DL are hitting, I think, .005 worse, a .005 worse average than Bogaerts was before he went down. So no drop-off there. And this team's taken every obstacle, and they've had a couple, and they've just totally ran with it. This is not the Red Sox we saw last year. This is not the Red Sox we saw under John Farrell, save 2013. This is a team that seems to be feeding on adversity, and they're likable. I'm enjoying watching this team. I stayed up the other night to watch the end of the game because I have fun when this team wins. I couldn't say that last year.
Yeah, I think John Farrell was just horrible at motivating. When what you have this year is a talented roster playing to their capabilities. We've said it all preseason, all off season. They're a good team. They're talented. Like, you look at them top to bottom, they definitely compete with the Yankees even on paper. It's just a matter of them underperforming the past few years. And we say they were underperforming. Last year they won 93 games and they were underperforming. We know what this team is capable of. And right now, today, Wednesday, the 18th, where are they? 14-2. They're playing out of their minds. And it's a team that's clearly on a mission and motivated, with the manager in Alex Cora, who actually knows how to lead the clubhouse. At least he does so far.
So I'm just going to throw this caveat on it, though. And you talk about underperforming. We've seen Mookie Betts get hot, right? What he did to the Orioles, was it 2 years ago? It seems like every time he played them, he was hitting every ball out for a home run. We've seen Jackie Bradley get hot. We've seen Christian Vasquez get hot at the plate. Like, everybody who's streaky is rolling right now. And this is kind of what the most optimistic Red Sox fan hoped for going into the year is, well, if Mookie can be this guy, and Jackie can be this guy, and Xander can be this guy, and Benintendi can be this guy, like, then they have a chance. And that was all true, but that was a lot of what ifs for me to buy in on all going their way. Now, they are all going their way right now, and with conviction. But I don't see this lasting. Look, the Red Sox, I think if they played, I saw a stat the other day, if they played 500 baseball from here on out, they'd finish with, I think, 89 wins, which relative to last year puts them in the playoffs. I'm not worried about this team finding themselves in a playoff race. If they are, something went horribly wrong. But can they keep this up? Can they sustain for a full season? When we get into the dog days of July and August, when we get into the postseason where nobody on this roster seems to have had any success, can they keep doing this? It's easy to do this in April, I guess what I'm saying. And they've done it in the cold, so it's not easy because this team historically hates the cold. But after they get a nice cushy summer of playing with low stress and warm weather, will they be able to revert back come playoffs? And it's April and I'm second-guessing them in the playoffs. Maybe that just makes me a hardo, and that's fine. And you can tell me I am, but that's just – I like this team right now, but they have to be able to do this consistently. I have to see that Jackie Bradley can hit well for more than a month at a time, that Xander Bogaerts can stay healthy. Look, he's already been hurt. I want to see him play another 2-3 months at least before he, day off here and there, but before he needs any extended time off. I want to see David Price continue to pitch well. Chris Sale, I just think are they peaking too early? I guess is what I'm building towards.
Beyond that, we want to see how Dustin Pedroia integrates himself into the locker room when he comes back.
As much as Johnny Gomes liked reminding us last night, this team doesn't have Dustin Pedroia back yet.
Yeah, and so and that's another thing that I think's gonna be an awkward transition. They're playing so well without him. Maybe he comes in and he messes things up a little bit. You got an Eduardo Nunez who's also a hustle guy who his teammates seem to love. Listen, I don't think that's going to be a problem. The reality is, though, this team.
No, I'm all for a little Ewing. I love the Ewing effect. I'm all for some Ewing effect talk. I don't know if it applies in baseball, but
I mean, it can. It goes back to my original point. John Farrell and the team couldn't motivate anyone. So you have Alex Cora in there, and right now their performance directly correlates to the locker room atmosphere and what they have going. At least that's my opinion. But the reality is, it's gonna level off. Like, they're not gonna have this winning percentage at the end of the season. But I think it all comes back to the starting pitching. Can David Price keep it up? Will he continue to pitch through, numbness in his hand?
Right. Can he keep his hands warm?
Can Rick Porcello go back to his 2016 form?
They've got Pomerantz coming back.
Pomerantz is coming back, and all their starting pitchers have done an excellent job. Again, it's going to level off, but then can they be as good as they are capable of being is the question throughout the season. And
so answer me this then, because this is what I'm worried about. I'm worried about them leveling off too hard, and I don't want it to just go from 10-1 wins to drop off into they lose 5 straight, because that's going to be demoralizing, and this team couldn't handle that sort of thing mentally last year. So that's what I'm worried about, is they're playing so well that when they do lose a couple in a row, because it's going to happen, I don't think a team's ever gone – I highly doubt an MLB team's ever gone a full year without losing consecutive games. I don't have that number in front of me, but that would be absurd if somebody's done it. Eventually they're going to lose consecutive games. I'm worried about how they handle that.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we are a couple weeks in already judging Alex Cora, but the reality is you really have to judge a manager off of how he handles a losing streak, how he handles a rough patch in their season, and we have yet to see that. So it's going to be interesting. I still think they're in a good spot. I like what I'm seeing. I think Alex Cora, so far, there's really not much bad you can say about him. And the lineup is hitting on all cylinders. Right now, they're just playing very well, and they're also benefiting from a New York Yankee team that seems lost with a manager who I think is in the opposite camp as a guy like Alex Cora. So
and it's not even the Yankees. Toronto's in second right now.
Yeah, Toronto's in second, and then you have.
It's very early, but take that for what you will.
Yeah, and the reality is, it's also a weak season so far. You have teams that have talent, but have they really pulled it all together? We have to be happy from what we've seen from the Red Sox so far. They've played very well. There's still a question mark in that bullpen, but they're hands down not only the best team in the AL right now, AL East. They're probably the best team in the AL right now, and probably even the best team in the MLB.
They've got the best record in the MLB, and after the series with the Angels, I believe they have 9 in a row against subpar teams before they play Houston. So they have a chance at least to lock up a playoff spot come mid-May, which is absurd to think about. It reminds me a lot of the Celtics start this year. What was it, the 16 straight wins after those first 2 losses? I forget if it was 14 or 16, but and of course we'll be talking about it all summer. That's going to do it for us today, though. I want to thank Tyler Sullivan for joining us earlier in the program. Wish we didn't have to have such an intense Patriots talk today, but it's just been one of those off seasons. We'll be back next week, some better Patriots talk. It will be our draft preview show, so you want to join us for that, plus more playoff coverage as well. So until then, he's Alex Lebowitz. I'm Alex Barth. Follow us on Twitter @CallinItPodcast. Check us out online, clnsmedia.com. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.